wonderful group of people. No problems at all. Everybody was wonderful. You saw the absolute worst of it. So everything calmed down and was perfect. Making sure that whole situation and sweethearts sharing and wonderful.
Test.
I just saw Shannon sitting down the hall using some little issues in the She just posted to that Cunningham was helping out a lot. I just picked her up and was like, yeah. I'll give you Western still. I'll find that better later.
Like seriously, somebody posted like they're like, oh, should I have students coming to class today? And it's like, no, you should phone that your activity for the class today is extra credit a week. It's just extra credit.
You know what? People are not e-learning. I mean, teachers today can throw a lesson on you and be like, hey, here's your names, here's a quiz, do something.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough that I've taught. Just like out of the middle kids don't get very good. Seriously, none of our students are like, none of our volunteers are all of the organizations that we have are usually out of the office just good for you. Like what? Okay, good for you.
Good for you.
You know, yeah.
Unreal. I can't. I just. Did you get some sleep at least?
Yeah. I've been trying to. So I'm gonna, after this, I'm gonna go and get some food really quick, and then hopefully run home and get some supplies, and then we will be basically locked out of the church really late tonight. I haven't reached out to any volunteers yet because the church staff isn't ready to come. Cool. Okay.
Let them do the day shift.
Let them do it.
Oh, there's, I didn't, I don't know, there is one.
Come on in.
Here, tight.
You have 3 cups.
Do you know if it's a meter holiday with the city closed?
A meter holiday? Something tells me no.
Well, the thing is, they have a
That would
max
just be
2 hours, so if this goes 2
Yeah,
hours.
I had 2
there you
quarters.
go.
Oh no!
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
Thank you. Okay, good.
I think it'll be good.
Okay.
I had 2 quarters.
Well, this happens. Parking spot. Now watch you go out.
Right?
Be like, this guy told me.
Last night, as everybody was like trying to calm down and go to sleep, one of the guys was like, Angel, tell us a story.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of Kalamazoo City Commission to order for Tuesday, January 29th, 2019. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cooney.
Present.
Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Here.
Mayor Hopewell.
present. May we have a motion to excuse Commissioners Anderson and Cunningham?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Sykes,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Cooney. All in favor, aye? Opposed? Motion carried. For our opening ceremony, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming out, braving this weather. We've struggled over the last couple weeks to try to get a meeting in, and apparently Mother Nature is going to continue to struggle us, but we are here, and everyone's here, and appreciate you making it here safely. Item E, I'll now open a public hearing to receive comments on a zoning ordinance to amend the residential district standards. Do we ever? Anyone wanting to comment on E1, please step to the podium during this public hearing. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Good afternoon.
Good day, whatever time it is. I'm Toby Hannah Davies, and I do live in the city on West Nitch Hill. And I want to commend all the snow plowing city staff for great major streets. On E1, I am so grateful as a member of the Isaac Housing Task Force for many years to see this come before you. The traditional neighborhoods in Kalamazoo were designed to be walkable and had a lot of charm until they suffered disinvestment. And I'm so happy to see that all sorts of possibilities might open up for increased walkability and more traditional style of neighborhood, honoring the historic neighborhood patterns. And that will open opportunities for a whole variety of kinds of affordable housing as well. So I think I speak for the whole Isaac Housing Task Force, which represents people from many different congregations in town, to say thank you for being so open-minded about what's appropriate for different neighborhoods. We're very happy about your very creative city planning staff and the work they're doing, really listening to residents in every neighborhood and building neighborhood plans based on neighborhood residents' wishes and desires. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wanting to comment on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion? Moved by Vice Mayor Knott.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Sykes. Discussion? Clerk Borling, roll call, please.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. My apologies. We need to go back to item C, the adoption of the formal agenda. I guess this afternoon stuff isn't working for me yet in my head. Anyone have any changes to the agenda? Anyone in the audience wanting to speak on items under F on the agenda, the consent agenda item, that item will need to be moved to the regular agenda. If you have such an item, please indicate at this time. Seeing none, consent agenda, please, Mr. Manager.
We have 11 items, plus 12th that will be held until February 4th. First is the approval of a professional service agreement with the Foster Group in the amount of $140,000 for water and wastewater utility financial plan preparation, service agreement assistance, true-up and rate studies, and general consulting services. Next is the approval of a sole source purchase with Ferguson Waterworks to provide Neptune smart water meters in the amount of $400,000. Next is the first reading of an ordinance to amend certain sections of Chapter 38 of the Kalamazoo Code to change the rates charged for water service. The proposed ordinance would increase water system revenues effective February 14, 2019. Next is the first reading of an ordinance to amend certain sections of Chapter 28 of the Kalamazoo City Code to change the rates charged for wastewater service. The proposed ordinance would increase wastewater service system revenues effective February 14, 2019. Next is the adoption of a resolution from the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Liquor Control Commission recommending approval of an application from Kalamazoo Valley Community College for a brew pub license to be located at 418 East Walnut Street in the city of Kalamazoo. Next is the approval of the Third Amendment to the Urban Cooperation Agreement to establish a public art commission. Next is the acceptance of a wellhead protection grant from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $70,000. Next is the approval of an easement for electric facilities with Consumers Energy Company to permit consumers to run electric transmission facilities over city-owned property on Pinway Street. And then we have the following appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions. First, the reappointment of Michael Anderson to the Board of Review for Assessments for a term expiring on January 31, 2022. Next is the reappointment of Glenda Campbell to the Board of Review for Assessments for a term expiring January 31, 2022. Next is the reappointment of William Gladstone III to the Board of Review for Assessments for a term expiring on January 31, 2022. And next, the reappointment of H. Charles Kiplinger to the Board of Review for Assessments for a term expiring January 31, 2022. And the reappointment of Terry Nelson to the Board of Review for Assessments for a term expiring January 31, 2022. And the reappointment of Linda Service to the Board of Review for Assessments for a 3-year term expiring on January 31, 2022, and the appointment of Tiffany Bell to the Water System Advisory Council for a term expiring on December 31, 2020, and finally the appointment of Stephen Walsh to the Water System Advisory Council for a term expiring on December 31, 2019. Next, the approval of a recommendation to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners that Greg Rosine be reappointed as one of the 3 city representatives to the Central County Transportation Authority Board of Directors. Next, the approval of the minutes from the City Commission meeting on January 7, 2019. And finally, the approval of the sale of city-owned vacant lot located at 318 Stockbridge to HML Real Estate, LLL, for $32,500.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioners requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 11, hold item 12 until February 4th, 2019, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of our city. Is there a motion?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Urban, supported by Commissioner Anderson. Roll call.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. G1, Mr. Manager.
G1 is acceptance of grant funding in the amount of $75,000 from the Michigan State Police as awarded by the U.S. Department of Justice to support the Bridging Opportunities Initiative.
Thank you. You have a report?
Yeah, I just want to comment on this, and I'm sure the city attorney will give his views on this as well. So, obviously, a couple months ago now, we had a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, a burn grant, and it had language in there regarding cooperating with ICE and the immigrant. I don't know remember what ICE stands for, but you know. Anyways, this one has come up since. Yeah, this one has come up since, and this one is through the Michigan State Police. And since that first resolution that was brought forward, we met with the Immigrant Rights Council representative and Al Concilio and Isaac representatives, and came to an understanding of what's being required and how we can work through this and receive the grant, but still hold to our policy of not devoting any resources to support ICE. So I'm sure the attorney would like to give some of the legal reasons behind it.
Mr. Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. In large measure, the city can proceed with this, not only, and it's my opinion that our policies don't necessarily run afoul of the requirements of the grant, but more importantly, the city, through Mayor Hopewell, is a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. The U.S. Conference of Mayors joined a lawsuit with the city of Evanston, Illinois, and got a injunction for the 2017 fiscal year. This grant is from the 2017 fiscal year, and therefore that injunction precluded the enforcement of those conditions in the 2017 fiscal year burn grants against member communities of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, of which the city of Kalamazoo is one. So we are covered by that injunction. It does not cover 2018, and I can say that every U.S. district court that has reviewed this, unfortunately there are none from the Sixth Circuit, but Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York, and I think some states who are included in some of those areas that have joined in with the local municipalities and have challenged those grant conditions. Those grant conditions have uniformly been struck down by federal judges. Now the Trump administration has appealed those rulings to the various circuit courts, and those matters remain pending. But at this point, those conditions have been uniformly found to be unenforceable for a variety of constitutional reasons. And I have no reason to believe that if the U.S. Justice Department attempted to somehow say that Kalamazoo, you're violating those conditions, we would have very good legal grounds to challenge that determination.
I'd ask that Assistant Chief David Boyson come forward. He's got just a few slides to explain what the program is.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I've got Maddie Jordan from NACD here as well in support of the bridging opportunities. Excuse me. I'd like to just talk briefly about what bridging is and what this grant will do, will allow us to do for bridging. So back in about 2016, we started seeing a big increase in, I'm trying to compromise on the microphone here, I'll pass it off to her. Well, we were seeing a big increase in juvenile-related crime. And neighborhood residents started going to the neighborhood associations such as NACD and Attomey to complain about the rates of juvenile crime. So we knew that we had to do something. The traditional police method of arresting, putting someone in a juvenile home, getting out, wasn't working. So we came up with bridging in 2017. This would be our third year of bridging. And I want to talk what bridging is. It's basically a community partnership with community-based organizations such as MADI and NACD, the Douglas Community Center, the courts, probation, the law enforcement, YOU is a big piece of it, and some other partners up there. This year, Boys and Girls Club is also going to be part of this. And what this does is it really closes the gaps of communication. Again, the police can't do it by themselves. The community can't. The courts can't. We have to work together because these kids were slipping through the cracks. So what this does is it provides high-quality programming in the neighborhoods with people such as Maddie run the neighborhood-based programming. And then it also allows for employment through YOU, so some of these kids that weren't eligible for YOU employment can get paid jobs in the summer, which is a big component of that. And that's what this grant would go to fund, is that YOU portion of the bridging. So as what we did is we drilled down on the problem of juvenile crime, and now we realize it's a very small number of kids are driving the majority of the crime. So we looked at the 2017 participants. We had 9 girls and 15 boys. And the first year that we did it, they were ages 13 to 16. These 24 youth had 120 arrests and 480 police involvements combined. So as you can see, just a small number of kids were really repeat offenders and kind of a revolving door of the system. 2018, we had 8 girls and 15 boys. We did it age 14 to 16 because every youth involved last year were paid by YOU, so that's the age requirements for YOU. And you see that last year we had 23 youth, 28 arrests, and 75 combined police involvement. So again, just a very small number of extremely high at-risk youth where we know if we don't do something to break that juvenile offender pipeline, they're going to become adult offenders. So this is what this is designed to do. As you can see, the juvenile crime rate citywide in 2016, we started to see that increase that I talked about. And these are Part 1 crimes, aggravated assaults, arsons, burglaries, serious offenses that these kids were involved in. So as you can see, since bridging, we've had a steady decrease in the Part 1 crimes involved with juveniles. But what's even more important is we look at the kids that were involved in bridging. So these are the kids that were involved in the 2018 bridging program. The blue represents their police involvements in 2016, total police involvements. The orange in 2017, and then the gray is what they were involved in 2018. They were in bridging in 2018, not in 16 and 17. So you can see those kids that participated in bridging had a 50% reduction in their crime rates as being part of this program and having that structure of the program that really makes a difference. We drilled that down even further and said of those 25, of those kids in 2018, of those kids that had attended at least 50% of the programming, it was even more of a dramatic decrease in their criminal involvements. It went down to 12 of those kids that attended at least half the time. So we know this program works. It makes a big difference, and we can't do it alone, and people like Maddie play a very big role in that. So, Maddie, if you want to say a couple words.
So I want to say hello to everyone for coming out today. But the first thing that I want to say is that, yes, I am absolutely in support of this, but I want to make it perfectly clear that we have to make sure that the immigrants that live in our community is safe. And if we can't do that, then we shouldn't accept any money from anyone. And it will kill us, I know, but the reality is that everybody has to be safe. And it shouldn't matter whether I am an immigrant or not. We should stand for something, or we'll go for anything. So I will accept that our city attorney has stated that he's confident that we will not do that. And in Grand Rapids, they're creating city ordinances that will make it so difficult that ICE wouldn't get anything. And so I hope that in the next couple years, because we're going to need the dollars to be able to decrease the prison to pipeline that is going on. And this program has shown it. I will say, again, I say to Dave all the time, that it needs to be year-round, because those numbers, I think, would be less. You start seeing it going back up when they're not in the program. And so you cannot change something in 6 weeks. We're doing a great job, but you know what? No, we're not doing a great job. We're doing a good job, but we are not doing a great job, because we still don't have that time span for the year-round. And so I hope that you will approve this grant with the understanding that we will protect our immigrant citizens that live in this community no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions, commissioners, for Ms. Jordan or Assistant T for the manager or attorney? Thank you all. Any citizen wanting to comment on this item, please step forward. You'll have 4 minutes. Give your name and whether you live within the city. Seeing no one, commissioners, the requested action is a motion to accept the grant and authorize the city manager to sign all documents, city manager and city attorney to sign the associated award documents. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner
Support.
Clyde, supported by Commissioner Urban. Discussion. Commissioner Sykes.
Yeah, I wanted to weigh in here. I've got some folks in the audience sort of making eyes with me, wanting to know, I think, a little bit more on how we came to this point. So I think one of the things that's really important, and I know that city staff is aware of this, but I want to share this with our community, is it's important to differentiate between separate grant opportunities. So this particular grant opportunity that we're talking about is a grant opportunity where we will be the sub-grantee to the state, and the state is the organization actually receiving the main funds. So as a sub-grantee, the stakes are a little bit different for us than they are with the $92,000 grant that we talked about previously. Additionally, our understanding is that the language of that grant is very different than the one that we did not push forward previously with the $92,000. So I want to be very clear, we're talking about 2 separate grant opportunities. As of right now, the grant opportunity that came up previously is not one that we are moving forward with, because there is still some legal stuff to figure out there. The city staff, I know, has worked really closely and spent some time in meeting with Susan Reed from the Michigan Immigrant Rights Council, as well as Isaac and El Concilio, as city manager Ritsema has shared. But in addition, you know, I have had a chance to speak to a couple of people about making sure that COSECHA as an organization is invited to those tables too, with the understanding that COSECHA is our only real, or is the main, let me say this, the main organization being led solely by immigrants in our community, many of whom are undocumented themselves. And so understanding that those who are leading that work need to be at the table in these discussions. I do also want to share with folks that the grant that did not go through the $92,000 grant, and I should totally know like the appropriate title, so forgive me for not knowing that. However, so that particular grant has some language in it that folks here in Kalamazoo from Michigan Immigrant Rights Center and folks working on this nationally has some language that nobody's seen before. And so that particular language has been sent to other attorneys, both here in Michigan and beyond nationally, to look at what that means for these legal proceedings and for our city. So until we have a clear understanding of what that means for us legally, that is not a grant that, my understanding is that any of us are talking about moving forward. This particular opportunity is one that, you know, having spoken with every single organization, including COSECHA, having spoken to the attorneys, it seems to be something that we can move forward with safely. With to Maddie's point, and I so appreciate your presence in our community. You know, just lifting that up and what you had to say was really special and important. But to her point, we are not putting any parts of our community at risk in order to serve another one, as we know that we can support everybody in our community, and we don't have to organize in a way that pits communities against one another. So I want to be really, really clear on the details about that. We have not put anybody at risk. And then finally, I really want to thank our city attorney, Clyde Robinson, and his team. As I understand it, in these meetings, our city attorney's office has made a commitment that should the federal government try to challenge us on any of these things in protecting our immigrant community, our undocumented community, they are committed to fighting this legally in court. And so I want to be really clear that, again, you know, we're not just saying, oh, we think it'll be great, we're going to move forward because it's important. We are very intentionally looking at all the language and making sure that everybody remains safe as we move forward over, you know, over time and protecting everybody. So I wanted to share that. Yeah, thank you.
Other comments, Commissioners? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. G2, Mr. Manager.
Next, we have the adoption of a resolution approving and adopting the annual appropriation for the year 2019, setting forth the number of mills to be levied, approving an interim appropriation for the year 2020, and establishing policies for the administration of the budget. We have the following 7 items that are included also in the approval. First is the approval of the proposed 2019 Brownfield Redevelopment Authority budget as submitted by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board. Next is the approval of the proposed 2019 Economic Development Corporation budget as submitted by the Economic Development Corporation Board. Next is the approval of the proposed 2019 Downtown Development Authority operating budget and the existing 2-year mill, the 2-mill DDA tax levy. Next is the approval of the proposed 2019 Downtown Economic Growth Authority operating budget. Next is the adoption of a resolution approving the 2019 fees for various permits, hearings, etc. within the City Planning and Economic Development Department. Next is the adoption of a resolution to establish the Department of Parks and Recreation fees and charges for 2019. And finally, the approval of the proposed 2019 fee schedule for the Kalamazoo Municipal Golf Association. Yeah, I just want to thank the staff that saw this budget process through, both from the city manager's office and management services department. What you have before you is a budget totaling northward of $182 million and a general fund budget of almost $65 million. There have been a few minor changes since the the original budget was presented, and those primarily are in the Foundation for Excellence Fund, totaling around $9,000. So I just want to thank staff and look forward to a productive 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Questions for the manager on his? Hearing none, anyone in the audience wanting to comment on this item, please step forward. You have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Seeing no one, Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to adopt the annual appropriation resolution and approve the component unit budgets and fee schedules. Is there a motion?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Anderson. Supported by the Vice Mayor. I did go to get glasses today, so I'm struggling. Are there discussion? Commissioner Anderson.
Just very quickly here, just a reminder for all of us. I know that we know this and we say it often again, but you know this budget is the manifestation of trying to turn our principles into reality here. And this budget obviously includes many things that we mostly don't think about, I suppose, every day. You know, whether it's fixing a broken water main or whether it's patching a street or fixing up a park. But in addition, you know, we do have the opportunity right now to include extras that we have not been able to include in the past, and those extras more intentionally address issues related to equity here in Kalamazoo. And I think that's something that's obviously very important to everybody that sits up here. And I just really would like to say that even for city staff and people that work on budgets, this has required getting out of the standard, you know, kind of eyes down, you know, here's what municipalities do kind of zone for spending money. And that's incorporated, and we're really trying to have this be an aspirational budget that builds a foundation for a future for everyone who lives here in Kalamazoo. So I really appreciate the work. Obviously, we've spent many hours over the last few months, and now we're just barely, as we get to the goal line here, as demanded by charter, getting this done. If we'd canceled one more meeting, we wouldn't have made it. But so anyway, thanks for everyone. It's a group effort. I really appreciate it. I'll say one last thing, probably not perfect in every way, but you know, is a good job, and I'm proud to be part of approving it.
Thank you. Clerk Borling, roll call.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Knott.
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. Mr. Manager, you have a report today?
Yeah, Your Honor. First, I'd like Public Services Director James Baker to come forward just to talk about the upcoming next few days that are really going to be a concern for us weather-wise.
Thank you, City Manager. Good afternoon, Your Honor, City Commission. Everyone is aware of the weather outside right now. However, there's two very significant things that are going to start to change over the next few days, and we want to make sure that everyone's well aware of them and well prepared to handle them. First and foremost is the temperatures. We're going to see highs within the next 2 days of negative, anywhere from -5 to negative below as our high. And that's something that Michigan has not experienced in a long time. Lows can be -15, could potentially be even lower than that. And with that is the wind chill that we're expecting that could be anywhere from -20 to -30 sustained, and could spike upwards of -40. Folks, that is very serious. If you're outside in that and not protected, you could have frostbite in a matter of minutes. And if you become, for whatever reason, trapped outside, not protected, whether that's through a vehicle accident or you're out walking about and can't get back into shelter, those temperatures can become fatal. So that's very serious. And common activities such as being outside to shovel your driveway or walk, folks can experience some real danger, some real risk from that. We expect those temperatures to be with us through Thursday afternoon, and things won't start to clear up until Friday. So Friday's looking like it's going to be a good day, but mainly these times are going to be kind of now, this evening, this afternoon, through Thursday afternoon, through Thursday night. We also have blowing snow, drifting snow, and lake effect snow that are coming, that are here and on their way. The constant blowing snow is very dangerous for whiteouts. The constant blowing snow is also very hard for our crews to keep those streets open. We've been on the streets since the snow first started coming down. Monday at 5 a.m., we've had plows on the streets 24/7. We're rotating crews in and out of trucks in 12-hour shifts, but the trucks have not stopped running. The trucks have not come off the street since that snowstorm began. We're working very hard. Everybody's dedicated. This is the work we love doing, but we're not where we want to be yet. We don't have all the locals cleaned up yet. We're working really hard on that. We don't have all our city responsibility sidewalks cleaned up yet. We're working very hard on that. We just ask folks to be patient, be careful, and think twice before you leave the house. If you don't need to drive somewhere, don't. With that, if there's any questions the commission has, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, commissioners? Just thank your teams. You know, this is the time where this is such a struggle. Having been a paramedic on the streets when we've had weather this bad, we could barely keep crews on the road and keep people coming in and taking care of everybody else. So hard stuff. Keep working. You know, I'm getting the calls about streets. Folks have to understand that this is unusually dangerous, unusually aggressive. We're out there and going to continue to be out there and truly doing the best job we can in a situation that's just not simple. So thank your teams for it.
Will do. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, next I'd like Laura Lamb, Assistant City Manager, to come forward. We were out earlier, Commissioner Anderson and myself, with an encampment that was dug into the property on Ransom and Pitcher, and fortunately we were able to get everyone there into shelter. Through that conversation, we realized that there is a need for more shelter space, so we are working, public safety is working with the emergency management, county emergency management, to open up a new shelter with Red Cross's help, and we'll have further details on that hopefully this afternoon. More than likely it's going to be at the Douglas Community Center, so we will also be working with Metro Transit for transportation for folks, so we'll get all those details out. We also met yesterday, a group of us with the county, and talked about the issues related to sheltering and longer-term housing. So Laura Lamb would like to just summarize that and give folks an understanding of where we're at.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. So yesterday, as Jim mentioned, the Mayor convened a call with Vice Chair Hall, Chair Rogers, County Administrator Morad, Sheriff Fuller, the City Manager. I think the real sentiment behind the call is this requires community-wide response. This requires a collaborative effort. The great thing is everybody on the call was absolutely in agreement. We went over a lot of the details that Jim just shared in terms of our current situation. Want to acknowledge all of the work that's gone in to create the temporary warming centers at First Congregation Church and at First Baptist. Pastor Dannison, his team, the community response. The city was able to offer our support to cover the cost of staff for the temporary shelters as well as the cost of cleaning, but the response of people mobilizing very quickly to make sure that they have a safe and warm place to sleep was appreciated by everybody. We've also had great collaboration between our public safety department and the county and the Emergency Operations Center Director, Korfman. We're continuing to open up channels of communication, so we get Portage and we get Kalamazoo Township all involved, latest and greatest information, we're all up to speed. So in the call, we identified a couple of options of potential shelter locations, as Jim mentioned, looking to see which is the most viable and how we can move quickly. But in general, we're all committed to keeping each other apprised of the situation and being able to act nimbly and flexibly to meet the situation at hand.
Questions for the manager, commissioners? Commissioner Sykes.
I hope this is okay. I don't have questions. I want to reiterate my gratitude for the work that the city's been doing. Folks know that I don't typically mince words if I feel like we can be doing more. And I know I posted this on Facebook too, if I feel like we can be doing more than we're doing. And that's not the case in this situation. City staff has been on point, throughout the whole past week and doing everything that they can. I have yet, and I've shared this with a few folks, I've yet to come across anybody in this situation who does not want to do their part. And so I am really grateful to city staff. I know that means a lot of long hours and not to mention, dangerous situations for folks who are going out there and at the encampments. So I am grateful for the work this past week, and I'm also really proud. I'm really proud of our city's response to this weather event. So thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I actually have a question for Commissioner Anderson. Has the point-in-time survey been postponed? Do you have an update regarding that?
Sure, I appreciate that. Actually, I was going to say something during Commissioner comments, but this is a good segue for that. So there is a national requirement that every community have a one-day count. It's called a point-in-time count in the country to establish the numbers for people who are without housing of their own.
Commissioner Anderson, let me interrupt. Just want to make sure no one else, any other
sorry.
questions for the Assistant City Manager? Just because she didn't want to have to, she made it back, I guess. So it didn't matter. Sorry, sir, go ahead.
Okay. That is a one-day snapshot of the numbers of folks who are in shelter and not in shelter in any given community. And in large part, those numbers help drive federal funding that comes to communities. So it is very, very important that those counts be accurate and fully grasp the entire picture as much as you can in that one day of homelessness in a given area. So the date that had been prescribed by HUD for this year was Wednesday, the 30th, to do the point-in-time count. We've been gearing up for that through a competitive process where I work at Kalamazoo Community Mental Health. We received a grant which was awarded, it's called a PATH grant, comes from Department of Health and Human Services, and that funds very specifically non-shelter-based outreach. In other words, outreach to people who are unsheltered, and we have got that grant. It started in October, so we're fully staffed up with a great team of folks that are doing that work. And that means we've been spending a great deal of time trying to identify in advance where people are camping, because our focus is the unsheltered, not the sheltered, in that portion of the count. The shelters and the drop-in center will do their own counting, but we're looking for folks who are not taking advantage of any shelter options. So what we've been preparing for that now for a couple weeks, trying to get word out to community, talk to various public sources to get that word out. That said, on Monday morning, and I looked at the weather, I thought, this is just not a viable option for us to do this count on Wednesday, the 30th, for two reasons. We're going to have staff out in the field all day, field, woods, other places, and into the night. And when we're talking about a situation where we're actually putting staff at risk who are going to be spending all the time outside, a matter of 15 minutes could be too long. That did not seem like a smart option to me. And also, I did not feel like we were going to get a really accurate count. People who are outside tend to really hunker down, obviously, not get out and about, stay in their shelters they've created, tents and so on and so forth, group up in those tents. So I really didn't think that we're going to get a good count anyway. I do feel that it's unfortunate that it is every year, it's a day in January that HUD selects to do this count, which I think is a challenge for people that live in the northern climes when it gets to count time. So that said, HUD was closed. So first thing on Monday morning when HUD was opened again, I made a call, and luckily I was able to get through to a former city employee, Keith Hernandez, who worked here, who's now the director of CP&D, Community Planning and Development Department at the Detroit HUD office. He picked up his phone right away. We had a very nice conversation. It was nice to hear his voice. Hadn't talked to him in some months. And I asked him very specifically, what is the process for us to ask for an exception to this required count day? And he sent me, the very, very detailed set of regs and steps you have to go through to ask for an exception immediately. Thank you, Keith, for that. And we, luckily, HUD was open in DC, and we sent off our request, our official request, that actually came from the person who works for our continuum of care here out of Lisk. His name is Ben Leverett. So we sent that off to the gentleman who makes those decisions. Interestingly enough, his name is Mr. Snow, and he was in DC. So within moments, he got back and said, I consider this to be a valid request. Obviously, since then, Governor Whitmer has described it, I guess, set tomorrow aside as a emergency. I'm not sure what the language is, but sort of emergency shutdown day here in the state of Michigan. So a few other of the continuums that we work with have taken advantage of that opportunity. I don't know what's happening around the state. Just so there's no confusion, there might be some communities that are still doing that count tomorrow. Keith set out another email this morning to everybody in the state, letting everybody know what their options were. So I don't know who's going to take advantage of that, so there'll be some sort of mixed messaging that's going to occur. But this is I guess, as public an announcement right now that we're going to make is that we are not doing the community's point-in-time count tomorrow. That new date is February 20th. I believe that's a Wednesday. And so there was a prescribed period of time that we had to agree to do it, and that was before the end of February. So that's our new date for Kalamazoo. It's February 20th. We also did work with the Calhoun County Continuum of Care that we provide services to also on the homeless side. And I think they've selected a new date, and I don't think it's February 20th. So unfortunately, those will not coincide. But that will give us time once again to kind of raise the issue, to get word out again, and hopefully the weather will be better on February 20th, and we'll be able to, really do the kind of accurate count that we need to. One thing that I do want to remind folks about, though, is that my housing team is working today. We were, we're going to all the campgrounds that we've identified. We worked with public safety this morning. They did a fantastic, fantastic job just engaging with folks. Nathan Dannison agreed to open their shelter earlier than they would have normally, so people could go over right now. For people who were out maybe at 8 o'clock this morning, you probably have noticed that just between 8 and now, the temperature has dropped dramatically and the wind has picked up. So we're definitely getting into serious situations. I would consider this a disaster type of situation. This kind of blizzard is maybe the disaster that we have here, not hurricanes. So that all said, that work continues through the day, but just want to raise this. I know everyone's aware about the gentleman who was sleeping on a loading dock area behind Pep Boys. I think that's out in Portage, who had passed away here a couple months ago. That there is a team that's available. So if you see someone sleeping, residing, seeming to hang out someplace in their car, we have a team that is, I'll call it, I guess, our SWAT engagement team that does that work. These are folks who are good at engagement, have had selected because they have personal life experiences that can be similar. This is not, this kind of a peer-based kind of a process. So I'm going to give a number right now. It's 269-364-6945. That's 364-6945. Often you will get a voicemail if you do call there, but we check the voicemail all the time. Partly the reason you're getting a voicemail is because we're not sitting at the phones. We're out doing the work. So anyway, any time, day or night. I'm sorry to say if you do call at 1 in the morning, maybe we're not going to be checking that voicemail till the next morning. But this is the job that we're committed to doing. So thanks for the question about the point-in-time count. Here's the short answer, not going to be occurring tomorrow. February 20th is the new date, but keep this, we don't have to wait for that date to do the kind of responding that we need to do now in terms of getting to folks who are not, taking advantage of the services that may be available. I do know that this is kind of a short response because it's so cold in terms of special situations at the First Baptist and Congregational, and still we do work very closely with the 8 other shelters that currently exist in the Kalamazoo area right now. There's 8 active year-round shelters, obviously the largest shelter being the Gospel Mission. I thank them for their work. Up to 350 folks a night are staying over there. The Gospel Mission has made a special effort to lift bans, to never say no to somebody and try to give space. There's alternatives now here with Pastor Dennison and that sort of thing, but there are other shelters as well. I won't go through the whole list right now, but from the YW to Community Mental Health, Open House, to ARC for youth. So our main point is to get people connected to services, so in this time of real immediate need, we can address that while we're planning for what our most humane long-term community response is to this issue. Thanks, Vice Mayor.
Any other questions for the manager and his report? Mr. Clerk, do you have a report this?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney, you have a report? Okay. We're now at citizens' comments. Any citizen wanting to comment on anything this afternoon, please step to the podium. You have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. You can speak first.
I'll sign in later.
That's fine.
So my name is Emily Demarest. You guys all know that. So I showed up to Thursday night. I went to First Congregational Church. They had a little open house about the children's playscape they were building. Nicholas Baxter, who's the building manager next door, said, "Hey, we have a code blue county emergency. Would you, we need people to come and help." Yes, we're down. That's our community responds. We do that, right? That's not the issue. So by Friday morning, we had a skid of food from Loaves and Fishes and 50 beds from the American Red Cross. And that was pretty much it as far as the extent of the direction or knowledge or information about who is getting paid and how and who and what and how could you be a volunteer. I want to thank pretty much, there's a ton of people in this room right now who've really been stepping up over the past few days to put this together. And it didn't really occur to me until Monday morning that we were supposed to be part of a plan. Like we, there's cold temperatures in Michigan. We know things freeze. This happens every winter. Maybe not to this extreme, but the risk of people freezing outside is not a new thing. So I have to ask myself, how does the primary church that's been identified as the emergency shelter in a countywide plan that I understand not know what they're doing and not have their details and not have a point of contact and not have any directions for what they're doing and how long they're supposed to be open and how they fit into this big picture? I can tell you we have made it work, but it has been a struggle. As those of you who work with people who are without housing, many of them have mental health issues, substance abuse issues. We have just kind of been pulling volunteers from whoever has stepped up, and there has been many, over 100, but they are not necessarily prepared to deal with these sort of issues, especially in a crisis situation. So first of all, I would really love to hear what we're supposed to do after Friday. Because I still haven't heard what our plan is. I don't imagine we will be done with winter in Friday, so I would love to hear what we're going to continue to do for these people. And I think the most disturbing thing for me is that we in the city sort of have this idea that homeless is, it's unfortunate, but it's inevitable. Oh well, there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to keep, just kind of putting people in shelters and shoving as many people as we can into the Gospel Mission and shoving people in some other places when we can do. We're talking about the situation. We're not talking about beds. We are talking about people who are sleeping an inch away from other people in these areas. I think it's ridiculous. There are cities across this country that do better than we do with less resources that we do. So I have to believe that as much as I stand here and I'm told again and again and again that this is a priority for the city, I don't see it. I don't see less homeless people because of what's happening. I don't. I don't know how you prove that. We study everything in the city. We have so much data in the city on everything. We use it to apply for all the money that we get. And we don't know how many people to expect at our overnight shelters? How is that even possible? How is that possible? So when this meeting's over, we will be heading back over to First Congregational to do what we need to do for tomorrow and the rest of the days to keep people safe. I'm hoping before Friday we have an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Lillian Slack. I live in the Vine neighborhood. I just kind of like to piggyback off of some of the things that Emily was saying. I heard about this all through her. I didn't hear about this through any formal channels. It felt like this was coming from her effort alone, from my perspective, which I think is ridiculous. I think we should have systems in place that don't rely on this one person that I happen to know. Like, if I didn't know her, I wouldn't know about this need that was suddenly appearing. The amount of response time it took to get an emergency put into place, granted that was Whitmer who finally put the emergency through. I think it's ridiculous. I think that having the bulk of the work go to a few churches, I think, how can that be? How can we put this, how can we have this expectation that these people can spend all their time and volunteer and all that things, and there's nothing in place? And on top of that, we're treating, like Emily said, we're treating a symptom of a greater concern. We're putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound in our society. This is not acceptable. So that's basically all I had to say, that I'm just shocked and appalled with what we can do. And I feel upset when we are patting ourselves on the back for what we're doing. Yes, the community is doing something, but we don't have something in place. We're doing what we can. We're scrambling. And I think that, yes, kudos to the people who are able to help, and I think that's awesome, but it's not enough.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi everyone, I'm Angel Johnston. I am a resident of the Vine neighborhood. I helped out at First Congressional last night, and it was really shocking. I grew up just south of the city of Chicago. I attended bar until 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning. I thought I had seen it all. I feel very street smart. And in about 5 minutes after I walked in, I felt like the most naive person on the planet. When you start to see what these human beings are going through, it's heartbreaking. And you know, we're looking at these budgets here, and I know that right now the city is doing the best they can. I know everyone is trying. But you know, I was born in May of 1979, and there was still snow on the ground when my mother brought me home from the hospital after Memorial Day from that blizzard. And it's funny, because every single year since, round about December 20th or 21st, winter has arrived. It's nearly 40 years now that that's been happening. It's gonna happen next year, and the year after, and the year after that. We've gotta be ready for this. We can't have Emily Demarest running point. I mean, she's doing a wonderful job. I'm not putting Emily down, I'm super grateful, but she's a private citizen. You know, we've gotta do better. We knew this was coming. You know, February 4th happens to be the midpoint of actual winter. We're not even there yet. You know, we've got to do better. We have rents that are skyrocketing. I'm told that more than half of the rental units in the city are owned by people who do not live here. There must be a way to stop that, or to at least extract some of that money and put it back in this community. So please, thank you. Oh, you're just scratching your face. I thought you were agreeing with me, city attorney. Sorry about that. I hope that you are paying attention, though, and that there is some legal research going on to see what we can do to keep some of this money in our community and not have it being sent off, because we need it. We need every penny. There's still a man who lives on the porch next door to me. He's still there. He won't come in. He won't go to the shelter. I begged him to come to First Congressional with me. I begged him. And when I was done begging, when that didn't work, I yelled and screamed and threatened. I told him, damn it, Renee, if I find you out here dead, I am gonna haunt you backwards, and I'm a witch and I can do it. And he still won't come, because he's mentally ill. You know, we have to do better. This is the first meeting I've been to that we didn't open with a prayer. And, you know, I like to kind of throw that at you guys when you do. You know, if you bow your head in prayer, then you better mean it. So let's look around and see. Let's get through this emergency, see what we can do, get some daytime warming shelters open now, and then stop and think, what are we doing to the least of our people? You know, it's end-stage capitalism here, guys, and you're the managers. All of you. You're the ones. I mean, and why be in politics if you're not looking to manage things, if you're not looking to help the least of our people? I believe that right now everybody is doing what they can do, but we have to do better. So when this is over and when we all take a breath, when the weather warms up, let's remember it's going to be winter again next year on December 20th or 21st. It's not going away. It's only getting worse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. One more thing. I forgot. Western Michigan University is still open. That is ridiculous, at least as of the time I left. I beg of you, someone please, please, please offer a motion to send the city commission, or I'm sorry, to send the president of Western a note from the city commission that says, hey guys, it's too cold to have our kids going to school or driving here. Think about it. People, are, you know, this might be their first or second year driving in the winter. We can do better. Please, guys, put some pressure on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca DeGraw. I actually reside in Kalamazoo County. I'm just echoing a lot of what has been said, but I also come forward as an environmentalist, actually. That's more my background. I know a lot of you probably are up to date on kind of the climate theories that are coming about. I want us to start thinking a little broader. Climate and weather are not necessarily connected, but I do think that emergency shelters don't necessarily have to mean winter. If we think back to February last year, we had a torrential flooding in late February, which is unprecedented, at least in my lifetime. I'm just wanting us to expand our thought process on what disaster relief will look like due to climate projections. In my free time, I read the IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports, and we do not have a bright future. I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of that. One of the starkest realities of those impacted was meeting folks that were affected by that flood in February, and they were pushed out of their housing. I think we need to be very aware of how climate will affect the future in Kalamazoo and the Midwest region, and how weather severities are predicted in this region, and it's not going to just be freezing to death. It's going to be flooding, increases in disease, or if you're interested, I'm happy to talk more about the IPCC reports. But I do want us to think broader and think about disaster relief as a broader point of interest for the city and the county and the state. I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to keep talking. I feel that I will echo that it was Emily Demarest who brought this situation to my attention. It's not hard to see that a lot of citizens are the ones that are on the ground doing a lot of this hard work and organizing, and I do recall hearing from Laura Lamb that we had staff that were paid. I might be wrong in that, but I'm very curious as to how funding is being delegated in this scenario from the city. If we have all these grants coming in for various opportunities for helping citizens in these situations, I'm just interested to hear more on how that's actually affecting emergency relief. But just to end, I think that we need, just to summarize what I was trying to say, is we need to have a broader look at our future and be realistic that this scenario, even though it's just an emergency for now, we're going to continue to see emergencies of this caliber, if not more severe, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Melissa Ray. I am in Kalamazoo County. Shannon, Aaron, boys. Women are being extremely negatively impacted in this environment. So I can appreciate the sentiment that you guys are all doing everything that you can right now, but we discussed this stuff in the summer during the protest. I had individual and group discussions with your staff, Ritsema, and you guys didn't drop the ball, you intentionally threw it so that you didn't have to help them. I know so because people on your staff ostracized me away from meetings to have discussions about this. So pretending now that you came in from some great rescue is some damn dog and pony show that shouldn't be happening. These people are the most vulnerable people in our society. They are hurting. They have addiction that they're using to try to supplement their pain. And there's options out there that are hurting them as well. So when you're pretending that you have great interest right now, I suspect you're dodging a bullet. And I hope that it has something to do with the things that I have pushed for. So if you guys actually, let me back up for a second. During the summer, I sat outside of this building, and I put myself on a bench because I wanted to offer the ability for someone on your staff to come talk to me if they wanted to, individually, and they did. And I was ostracized from both groups, so I was ostracized from the encampment and I was ostracized from your office, so I was kind of like just observing the things that were going on. And you came outside, Ritsema, and you asked me what needed to be done to stop this. And I said, give them something real. And the something real your staff gave them was bulldozers on every fucking thing they had. Get it together.
Next, please.
What's up, guys? 1407 Bryant Street.
Need your name, sir.
Chris Wilmhoff.
Thank you.
Last time I said I was never coming back here for the same reason I'm coming back here. I don't want to make this a throwing daggers thing. I appreciate that we're making forward progress, and I want to keep going there. But I want to echo that on Saturday, we're back to square one, and the two people that we did lose this year, whether we want to argue, which I will heavily, about what we have in place, we did lose two people this year. We've lost people every year. If we don't want to lose any more people, if we go back to square one, that's what happens. So, and I appreciate that you guys are going to announce something. When the building burnt down last year, and you guys announced something that led to me being condemned twice and spending 6 months homeless myself because of the laws you instituted. And as your office has called for 2 hours, I still have yet to have any paperwork to prove any of it. So when you say that you're putting things in place, what are the things in place? Those need to be details, and you need to consider who's been a part of those decisions, because they've had really adverse effects personally. And again, I'm not trying to push down, but if we're going to do a cold blue, let's set a standard and agree what we've got right now. If it gets under 30 degrees or something, immediately we say we need to put this back in place or do something. Not only when we spoke on climate change, you've been heavily a part of it, Bobby. You've signed off on climate change a lot. I think just about everybody up here has agreed it's real, but we need to walk it. And I'm, you know, again, it's not to throw daggers, but Ritsema, you came up and wanted to shake my hand, and I asked you to prove it back then, and we both knew the outcome that was going to happen was that outcome that night. And I always say the things I do, and I think the things I do, because the outcomes I expect are always the outcomes that I expect. So I hope that when I hear these details, I will gladly be the first person to say, oh my God, I think I'm wrong. I will be so happy. But please, take that step to show us that the reason a lot of people didn't show up is because they think that the details are going to be a PR move, and then in a week or 3 weeks when somebody freezes to death because of whatever. It's about the resources we do have that we said they didn't take, and not because we actually took the steps that we could have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Reverend Sarah Schmidt-Lee. I live on Cork Street in Millwood, and I'm one of the pastors at the First Congregational Church. We are grateful to have been invited to help in this emergency. I can confirm that the vast majority of the work has been done by volunteers who have stepped up, who are not directly affiliated with either the city or the church. Our church members have been eager to step up, but have lacked a lot of information because this is a project that is being organized spontaneously by citizens who are stepping up to meet a need. It is not something that we had a plan for. It is not something that our city has committed resources to communicating about effectively. And we're feeling the pinch of that. And on a larger scale, as someone who writes checks from people who are referred by Ministry with Community, I write checks at least 5 times a week to help people afford a hotel room for 2 nights while they wait for subsidized housing to come through. That's $60 a night for people who are already in dire straits. But I think the most distressing thing is the number of times that we are told somebody needs to pay their deposit on a new apartment. This is for the affordable housing in town, and the deposits are $900. Our church can't cover all of that for every need that comes in. We can only cover a portion. And so there are churches all over this city that are getting calls 2 and 3 times a week so that each of those churches can contribute between $100 and $200 to piece together a $900 deposit for somebody who cannot afford that. I can't afford that. We need to change something.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we are at Commissioner's comments. Commissioner Sykes?
All right, so I feel like I have to do it, or not have to. I do this more and more. I apologize in advance because I just know I'm going to take a really long time, and I am super sorry because I know a lot of us, both up here and out in the room, are like anxious to get done and get back out there and get to work, right? Because people are cold. So I will try to speak as quickly as possible and get through this as quickly as possible. I actually hadn't intended to touch on a lot of these things until after this meeting when some of us met privately, but I think it's important to lift up some of these thoughts and realities having heard the citizens' comments. So there's a lot to say. I want to, first and foremost, validate the feelings of frustration, anger, tension. You know, it's chaotic. There's not like, it's just chaotic, right? It's messy, but folks are making it work. I want to validate those feelings. I think too often what we hear is stop being so negative, right? Be nice and appreciate what you do get, right? As opposed to demanding more. The reason that it's so important to me to validate those feelings is because I am often the person up here doing the same thing, right? Going like, this is insane, right? Like, there are YouTube videos we could go back to prove that I am also that person, right? And I received a new book in the mail. Radical progressives might know about this, like book lists where they send you new radical books anyway. And the very first page was basically the author like, yo, people say I'm crazy, but like, we're out of time and I see it, and so call me crazy. Those of us who know this is real need to get to it now. We are out of time. And reading that one page for me was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, yay, right? Somebody understands what this feels like. So let me validate that. I also want to add to this. I want to be very clear, right? There is a lot of, yes, we are doing everything that we can as a city. And we still need to do better. Those are two things that can coexist, right? To some folks who have talked about this past summer, part of the reason why, and I'll get to the emergency of the situation here very quickly, but part of the reason why I am so grateful for what I'm seeing is because it is different than what we saw last year. And these temperatures are more extreme, granted, than anything on record during last year, right? But last winter, our residents were out in the cold, freezing, and this conversation was not happening. Okay, I want to share that, and from my perspective, I have seen movement from the city and understanding the sense of urgency, and I've seen it in our own community, including the activist community. The way that we are responding to this issue today is different than the way we responded to this issue over the summer. We are all progressing, and we have a long way to go, undoubtedly. It is crazy out there. I get it, right? We have people on a regular basis. I want to be really clear. We still have people on a regular basis who text us, Facebook message us, and say, yo, I did the best I can, but it's too cold or it's too wet out here. I don't have anywhere to go. Can I sleep at your house? And the answer is always yes, right? So we have regular home visitors, so I get it. And we're doing better, all of us. There are more of us volunteering right now than there were during the encampment. There are more of us, here who are not homeless, who are saying, y'all, do something now. Over the summer, the vast majority of those folks were homeless people. And so we are all doing better together. And yet it's not enough, and I absolutely own that and understand that. We've got more to do. So there's a couple of things that I want to sort of bring together from both the institutional perspective and also the community perspective, right? I do think there's some work to be done to connect the two. Everything that you mentioned, Commissioner Anderson, sounded like yes, 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 like on the right track. All of those things, right? And I understand that many of us, myself included, are not being kept in the loop on some of that work, which is unfortunate because some of us on a regular basis, day to day, are very closely connected to members of the homeless community that aren't for whatever reason, this is not an attack, being found by the street teams, right? And so I only say that to say, yo, we need to connect, that's all. And as soon as we wrap up this meeting, a good number of us will be. I want to thank Captain, he's not here anymore, Vernon Coakley. I got a text message from him this morning that was like, yo, call me as soon as you can, we need to talk about folks in an encampment who refused to leave, that both David and Jim went out to visit, right? So today, we're going to leave this meeting, we're going to connect those dots, all of them. Sorry, guys, I'm so sorry. All of us. That's important, right? I want to thank KDPS for being out there and trying to get people to safety. I want to thank the street teams, and I want to thank y'all. Because from my vantage point, I know from the homeless folks that I have personal relationships with, the folks people see are you all. The folks people are experiencing support from are you all. And we'd still have a lot of people out there in tents right now if it weren't for you all. So thank you for the over 100-some people doing this work. Thank you to the people who are up late at night. Like, this is insane. I don't know what to do. Trying to figure it out. You are the ones saving lives. Like, don't get it twisted. You are the ones saving lives. And I would suggest helping us learn how to do it better. Late-stage capitalism, as somebody lifted up, means that all of us have to learn how to collectively do this. It is on us, and we are doing better and better and better. And yes, the institutions have resources that they need to share with us, and information they need to share with us. But this is the way we're going to survive, especially with climate change, the impacts of climate change. So I want to lift all those things up. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the homeless members of the Bronson Park Freedom Encampment and others who right now are trying to get their folks inside. right? This is not just all of us. We love to come in. Listen, I do too. Like, that savior mentality is always there. And it always seems like something that would be really dope to wrap ourselves up in, right? But this community is one that's been surviving for a long time, and they know survival better than any one of us in this room. And they are the ones who are going to lead the charge in how to get everybody inside. And so that's another one of those things that we're going to talk about when we leave here. I want to thank, I cannot thank enough, Emily, DeMorest, Angel, all of you that have been like out there. Sarah, I want to thank you. I also have to thank, I know they're not here, Nathan Dannison and Nick Baxter, who are at the churches right now holding down the shop. I particularly want to thank Nathan Dannison because, again, going back to that, you're being too emotional, you're being too negative. Nathan sent us an email late one night that, like, all respectability politics, all of the, like, sort of measured communication was out the window. He was angry. He was angry. And he let that emotion come out. And that, to me, is far more impactful than the professional emails that get sent out. For instance, to those of you who are going to go speak to him, let him know the professional email he sent out the next morning apologizing for his emotion the night before, I believe, was less effective than the emotional email the night before. So thank him for that. Have I thanked everybody? I think so. This is an improvement. We are doing better. Both our institutions are doing better, and our street teams and our activist teams are doing better. We are figuring it out. We are going to continue to figure it out. We will not lose lives these next 2 days if any of us have anything to say about it. And come Friday, we're going to figure out what to do to get through the rest of the winter, because we have learned and we are growing and we are being a better community support to our neighbors, period. So let's sit with that. Let's get back to the work. Let's do it together collaboratively and communicating with one another so that we can have the best possible outcome. Y'all, but we got this. All right? All right, I love y'all. I'm going to shut up now.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I really thank all the people who have worked so hard just over this past couple weeks, which I just think is tremendous to see how much people care about the most vulnerable people in our community. I want to thank especially the city manager. I know he's worked awful hard. I want to thank Nathan Dannison, the people of First Congregational, and all the people that have worked there. And I see John sitting back there. I want to thank him for all that the Gospel Mission is doing and what David is doing, what all the people are doing. It's tremendous what you're doing, and there are tremendous gaps. One of the things that I think is really encouraging is that this is being seen now as a community problem. The county has begun to step up. The churches are stepping up. The Red Cross is stepping up. This is a community problem. The city has a responsibility, and we have to do our part, and we have to do it a lot better than we've done it in the past. But this is a community problem, and the city can't do it all by itself. So I think that's one thing. It's clear to me that we need to do more planning for the emergency, and we have to do longer-term planning. I think that there's things that we can learn from other cities, and I don't think we've really taken advantage of that. I know that I've had my graduate students do research on 15 other cities about things that are being done there. I would love the opportunity to be at the table to begin to discuss those things. Finally, I would like to say that there are deeper problems here. And the deeper problem is, why are people homeless? And I think that means that we really have to take a stronger look at what we're going to do about poverty. The missing link here is the federal government. The federal government has cut, since the Reagan administration, 75% of what they spent on affordable housing. That's a huge gap. And there's been no effort since 1981 to try to pick that up. Something's got to happen there. Something's got to happen there. So we got a lot of work to do. But there's a lot of people knocking themselves out right now, and we don't want to turn on each other. We want to appreciate all the hard work that's being done, but we still got a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Urban?
Thank you, Mayor Hopewell. Well, I'm heartened by Commissioner Sykes pointing out that we are learning. We haven't learned all we need to know. We haven't done all we need to do. But by the way she phrased that, it gives people hope, whereas before last summer, there was pretty much a feeling of despair. But borrowing money from existing pots, which is what we're doing right now, isn't good enough. The emotional intensity is very high. We see that here right today. But most of our community is not listening. They're not here. But I say they will listen when we ask them to pay for what needs to be done. And I think it's time we as a commission step up and come up with a proposal to ask for money to solve this problem. So my suggestion is that the commission as a body request that staff come up with a plan that involves as many other partners as they can find, but clearly specifies what the city will do in return for what others will do. So it's kind of like a matching thing. Bring that plan to the city commission and with a dollar figure attached to it, and let's see if the city commission will approve it. And then we'll see if the voters in our community will return us to office, or we pick somebody better. That's what we're here for. You know, it's time to move past the emotional intensity and the striving by individuals to get a considerate global solution in hand. I mean, there are people who do emergency planning. One lady I know who's very good at it is Ann Neuenhuis. She's a professional at doing this thing. So it is possible to get this onto a professional basis and a planned basis. And all the things that you said resonated with me very well, but we have to move past wringing our hands about it. So I'm offering to all of you the possibility of making that a motion. It's too late in this commission meeting to do it, but I would hope that someone, if no one else, I will arrange for such motion to be introduced, and we'll see what happens.
Commissioner Fleischman?
Thank you. Just quickly, my phone has been lighting up since we've been here with alerts. Businesses are closing. Western just announced it's closing tomorrow. I don't know about tonight, but all campuses in Western are closing tomorrow, or closed for tomorrow. The governor's declared a state of emergency. Mr. Manager, I asked this before you answered, I have another point to make, but have you heard anything while we've been in this meeting from either Douglas or Red Cross? And the reason I'm asking is people are shutting down, and the sooner we have this information and the harder we push for it, we can get it out while people are still working and before the 5 o'clock news. So do you have an update? And if not, what do we need to do to get to an answer before we close the business today?
Assistant Chief Vanderweer, you want to come forward and just give an update on the shelter situation?
At this time, Red Cross is delivering enough supplies for 30 additional beds at the Douglas Community Center, so we're making arrangements to also have that staffed and calling in additional officers from KDPS to help staff that and volunteer there.
And is this, is this then through, this is the stopgap once the downtown churches stop providing service Saturday, or how long is this going to be open?
We'll have it open as long as it's needed. Part of the issue has been that since the governor declared a state of emergency, resources are being tapped now by the American Red Cross all over the state, and so they're now getting stretched thin. So that's, we've got that, but the staffing of those shelters is coming into question. So that's why KDPS is going to staff it initially with a couple officers from our staffing.
So we would welcome volunteers to help
yes.
staff the new shelter.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A couple things. We're still in communication with the county leadership, really trying to get them to engage from the human services level, knowing that we know community mental health, and that's part of how this community engages and moves forward on this. We'll continue to call with them in regards to other resources, personnel, opportunities, so we can supplement and assist where we can, and also having more discussions about our county's emergency operations plan, which sort of what you have been talking about. I've never heard of this Code Blue thing. Maybe is that a thing? No? Okay. Anyway, that's okay, whether it is or not. I just had never heard of it and have been a part of the Emergency Operations Center over the years. And so continuing that work, trying to make sure we establish more resources where we can in regards to personnel. Volunteers are needed. We'll keep at it. So I would ask that the media that is here, all of you have those little, I don't know what they call them, scrolls. Is that what it's called? Scrolls on your televisions or on your productions. Please scroll out this vital information and help get it out on your social media as we do that as well. And all of us can help with that. One telling one tells another tells another. We are adjourned.